let me just have you kind of answer the beginning there of how well you believe you're connecting, particularly with blue-collar Democrats across the state of Ohio.
Well, honestly, I've always been pretty successful connecting with citizens in Hamilton County, Cincinnati. I've worked very hard to knock on doors, talk to people, listen to people, and I've always done quite well connecting actually with Democrats and Republicans and swing voters. That's why I've been able to win elections down in a pretty Republican part of the state.
Yeah, and that raises the question. I mean, your campaign is fascinating statewide from the perspective of, there's probably from your campaign perspective, a real shot of cutting into those Republican votes in Hamilton County and Cincinnati, and then using the northeast part of the state, which is the Democratic stronghold, cutting into central Ohio. I mean, do you think that your southwest connections and your Republican name ID is a real help in a statewide race?
I think it should help. I mean, I've always managed to both achieve success across party lines by working with people on both sides of the aisle, and I've always campaigned in Democratic areas and Republican areas and tried to talk to everybody. And that's always worked pretty well for me. I've tried to be a little less partisan in my approach to things, and people have voted across both sides of the aisle for me, both at City Hall as well as County Commission. So, you know, I think the formula is you get out there, you work hard, you talk to everybody, and when you're in office, you work hard across party lines to get things done. And that's always worked well for me.
Your Republican opponent in the last couple of weeks has made a little bit of news because he's taken this no new tax pledge, said he would not support a tax increase, even though the state could be facing as much as an $8 billion shortfall in the next budget. In this campaign year of anti-government and Tea parties, will you take the no new tax pledge, and what do you think about that?
Well, it's the second time in 3 months where he seems to not know what the auditor's job is. 3 months ago, he announced a budget commission, and even the current Republican auditor said he doesn't know what the job of auditor is, and here he's suggesting that the auditor somehow plays a role in the setting of tax rates. I'll simply be clear. I have, in my time in office, voted to reduce taxes successfully multiple times. I've cut spending to the lowest level we've seen in Hamilton County in about 10 or 11 years, and I'm happy to pit my record of tax and spending against his any day of the week. He comes from the highest tax, property tax at least, county in the state, and he spent, I think now his budget is 2.5 times the level it was 8 years ago. But the big picture is the auditor doesn't set the tax rates. We obviously are working, but we can work very hard to help make government more efficient, to help reduce spending, to help ferret out waste, fraud, and abuse. That's what I plan to do as auditor.
So, no new tax pledge is what?
It's somewhat of a red herring. I won't be raising taxes either as auditor. The auditor has no control over tax rates. It's sort of what you see in campaign season, but as a county commissioner and as a city council member, I have voted numerous times to reduce tax rates, something I don't think he's ever done.
You're right, the auditor obviously doesn't set tax policy, but the current auditor, Mary Taylor, who's now Republican gubernatorial nominee John Kasich's running mate, has been very critical of the budgeting process. She's been a very vocal opponent of the use of one-time money, she would say, in the current budget, and use of stimulus money. And the question obviously is, what does that mean for the next budget that will have to be passed next year? What's your view about how the current administration has handled the most recent budget, and what should be looked at going ahead for the next one?
I would say as auditor, the best role that I can play is to really try and help on the performance side, examine top to bottom how the state is spending money. We know that there's a big gap going forward. We know that a lot of what happened this time was a one-time fix, and that's going to have to be dealt with differently next time because there won't be another package that helps save the day. I think the auditor, I know what the auditor announced about a year ago that she wasn't happy with the process, but my question is, well, what are you doing to help? And I think if you look at auditors around the country, they do performance audits and reviews of state government so that they're not just pointing out the problem, they're actually pointing out ways that government can be more efficient. You're seeing this happen in other states where you do you work with the governor, whoever the governor is, to look under every piece of state government and figure out where is there waste, where is there inefficiency, what reforms can you undertake. So you're not, in the end, I'm not running for governor, I'm not running for the legislature, they're the ones who do the budget. But as auditor, you can actually help narrow the gap by finding the waste, finding the inefficiency, and that's the work that I want to do from day one, is begin that process of assessing the performance of state government and how we can make it more efficient.
What's your assessment of how that work is being done now?
Well, I'll simply say from you know, I'm 100 miles south of here to see this Legislative Budget Commission not even having met yet, you know, I think that's not a good thing. And as auditor, what I would like to do, and I know the point of that commission is to do the kind of work I'm talking about. The auditor can also be doing exactly that type of work, and I think it needs to be done obviously very aggressively. But you can't wait a couple years into being auditor before you start talking about that stuff. You got to do it from day one so that when budget time comes around, you've done the assessment, you've done the analysis, and you have hopefully many, many recommendations of how state government can work better.
If you're elected and Governor Strickland is re-elected, is there a possibility, and can you foresee looking at some things and making recommendations where you might have a fight on your hands, where the administration isn't exactly thrilled about certain cuts or certain scale backs in agencies? Are you prepared for that? Is that, or will it be too of a partisan position where you won't be able to engage in that?
No, I mean, the auditor is an independent position. And you have, as auditor, to work with Republicans and Democrats, not just the state level, but at all levels. So whoever, you know, whether it's a Republican mayor, a Democratic county commissioner, or a Democratic governor, Republican governor, to the auditor, it should make no difference. You have to sit down and do the independent analysis that citizens want you to do. And sometimes that can lead to tension, and then sometimes that means you're working across party lines in cooperation. My record in Hamilton County, Cincinnati, has been working across party lines and oftentimes getting into disagreements with people in my own party. And I think, but especially important for a position like auditor, that independence and neutrality is incredibly important. If you give the sense that the auditor is simply a partisan political position, I think you give away the job, and you give away the leverage and platform that actually this is a position that really can help be a watchdog, whoever's in power at whatever level, and also can be a neutral quarterback in trying to help make government work better. And one thing I think the auditor, a role the auditor can play beyond the financial audit side and the budget side, is to really help us think through how to reform government at all levels. And we know if we don't reform government right now, we simply won't compete as we need to for jobs and young people and the families we need in this state.
Real quick, a lot of things come up in a campaign, and the state is getting to know you. Some of the blogs, particularly Republican blogs, have gone crazy on flag burning.
Oh, right.
And just quickly, so you can clarify that in this campaign, because little things do come up and they kind of trickle out.
Right.
You actually wrote in a column when you were a student, writing for the Western Hills Press, if we make this form of protest illegal, we might as well collect every flag, every copy of the Constitution, and every bald eagle and destroy them in a huge incinerator. If we're going to curtail the fundamental democratic right of freedom of speech, these symbols and others will all be meaningless anyway. So in this campaign of 2010, could you just quickly verify your position on flag burning, and do you think issues like this somehow play a role in campaigns where you're not as well known?
Did you see the picture there? I think it was 1990. I think I was literally a freshman in college.
Right.
I think what I said was I abhor flag burning, but just like I think Justice Scalia would say, you can't ban it as speech. So it's sort of a First Amendment, I guess almost more libertarian view that you can't ban it, and that's the law of the land. I was simply echoing what is the law of the land today. So I don't see the controversy there, and as people dig up that kind of stuff, obviously they'll mischaracterize it. But yeah, I think the position I've taken there is consistent with the law today.
Very quickly, 8-to-1 fundraising edge over your opponent. Is that going to grow?
Let's hope so. We're plugging away, but you know, there's a lot of focus on fundraising all the time. Most important to me is to talk to people face to face, to get out all across the state. So as much as it's important I've raised money, I've also been on the road. I'm getting close to 70,000 miles of driving, 3 flat tires so far, getting around the state. And as I've done in my past campaigns, you obviously have to raise money, get your message out, but most importantly is the message and talking to people face to face, which I'm working very hard to do.
Commissioner David Pepper,
Hey,
good to see you.
Thanks so much.
Good luck on the campaign trail.
Appreciate it.